Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. I can legally sing this song now because it's in the public domain. Last part's not so catchy though. A while back, I let you guys know that I was going to try and incorporate a little bit of Glyos reviewing into Random Review rather than doing a once a month or once every 2 month recap of everything that's come out, just to see how it flies. And I could think of no better experiment for that than the 10th anniversary Glyos drop. Yes, the figure you see in front of you is the original Phaeton, the original Glyos figure and character, now 10 years old and still surviving really well. They're very well made. So, yeah, this guy has had a long run, originally conceived and designed by Matt Doughty, and the Glyos universe has been expanded by many talented artists and toy designers since then to get to the point it is today. And it is astonishing that one man and his family have managed to keep an independent toy line going 10 years, especially now that the drops are happening usually once a month. Kind of astonishing. So we're going to take a look and see what the 10th anniversary offerings were, starting with this drop's official Phaeton release, Biophase. Phase is a shade of translucent green that's very important in the Glyos universe and even into the fiction. We're going to describe a lot of the fiction in this episode, so stick with me. So yeah, this is the evolution of the Phase color scheme with an off-white paint decorating a ton of this toy. Just so you're aware, this thing is entirely cast in the translucent green, which allows for really interesting little translucent effects, like the little bit of his chest that's still left clear, even though it's painted on all sides, or the little pieces of translucent green left over on the kneecaps. Creates a very cool look, I think. And yeah, I don't normally go for translucents, but when you make them interesting like this, yeah, you kind of catch my eye a little bit. So that was the official Phaeton of the drop, going back to some of the retro colors. And then we have something interesting. We have a Phanos. And any drop that includes a Phanos, you know, is special. This is Dimension Drifter. Dimension Drifter was one of the custom core releases, which is individualized, hand-painted, and hand-customized figures released by Matt Doughty. Most of them were about one of a kind. And since they're hand-painted, technically they're all one of a kind. So this is kind of a throwback to that, and Phanos was in a few of those drops as well. Translucent pink with metallic translucent, or metallic pink paint, and then plenty of black decorating him. He's got that very alien vibe I like to him so much, though he does come across looking a wee bit Bret Hart. That said, this is exceptionally cool, and he did come with an extra set, which means an extra torso and pelvis, you have a scarf, and 3 additional heads, meaning you can build a Phaeton, a Scarf Phaeton, or my favorite Sarbos out of him too. Lots of build options with this one in really cool colors. So beyond that, those were the more standard releases, the more things you would expect. You also had a couple new Crave-Off that showed up, including, yeah, the Dimension Drifter color again, as well as a throwback to the original Crave-Off color scheme, if it would focus, done up with a lot more paint than they used to get. Very, very nice. So we got some retro stuff going in here, as well as some throwbacks to some bygone eras of Glyos. But it's the anniversary drop, so it's not just about the old, it's about the new, and this was very new. You guys make way here, because I need to show off Vilsir. So the Glyos actually has a pretty deep fiction and lore to it, a lot of which is very vague, but a lot of what we do know is that there was a war once upon a time where this guy nearly conquered the entire universe, etc., and has now made his return. He's also responsible for the last villain, Arjun, going amok and, basically trying to bring up a robot revolution of his own. So yeah, this guy is bad news, and he's extremely cool. So for starters, he's a lot bigger than your standard Traveler figure by at least a good inch. very bulky as well. You can see he doesn't have those thinned out arms and legs like the Traveler mold does. Everything is big and bulky and powerful looking, as you would expect for someone who is actually the big bad of the Glyos universe. And considering he is the villain from the very start of the storyline, that would probably make him the big bad of every section of the Glyos universe, which makes him kind of awesome. As you can see, he's done up in this dark teal plastic as well as some brighter teal paint. That goes back to the Vilsir color scheme they did for a bunch of their robot figures a while back, which was in kind of a metallic teal. This looks exceptionally cool. I really, really dig him. You can see a lot more organic shapes going on him. A lot of creased lines to give him this very rounded look, like he's a whole bunch of, almost like a whole bunch of worms kind of wrapping together in order to form a humanoid shape of some kind. And he's got a lot of interesting shapes. There's a few things that take a little bit of getting used to, like the weird bend to his arm, for instance. There's actually a fairly good reason for that. Aside from making them more versatile, you actually do have a little bit of outward motion built into this guy, which is actually kind of different for, a Glyos figure. You also have a lot of shapes that harken back to something else that's traditional in Glyos, the axis joint set. This is your little upgrade. If you want universal articulation on your Glyos figures, this is the way to get it. So you'll notice a lot of similar shapes and similar diagonal cuts to the sculpting. See, in Glyos fiction, here we go again, these are actually part of the storyline. Apparently these are built from Vilsir's tech and actually have a little bit of his sentient virus in them, which means, yeah, a lot of his designs were meant to emulate the shape of the axis joints that were made years and years ago. That's actually kind of cool. You can see that in a lot of these diagonal round cuts and a lot of things like this, which are mirrored in plenty of Glyos builds over the years. That's really cool. And yeah, this thing is extremely playable. Matt Dowdy showed off a ton of different builds this thing was capable of. There's 20 parts to it plus a switch pin, if I remember correctly, which allows you a whole bunch of different things you can create. My favorite of which is this guy. This is an Edge Raptor, which is totally what I'm naming my next band, by the way. This thing is absolutely awesome. You take a look at this. These guys look nothing alike, but these are the exact same figure arranged differently. Thus is the power of Glyos. What really seals it is that head with that big sharp design to it. And that is a part that you can find on the Vilsir figure itself. That backpack can form a face that way, it can form a head that way, or it can just be a big claw if you want to use it. A lot of this is designed to work in multiple ways, and this is one of them. This is exceptionally cool. So yeah, that was a favorite. This also plays well with axis joints, of course. Unfortunately, I can't show you one of those builds because I was unable to get more than just the one set of axis joints. I also can't show you the some of the multi-builds that they did with this particular figure because it was one per figure, and by the time I could order another one, they were already sold out. So, yeah, okay, I have to settle for photos. One I can show you, and the one I liked the most, and now that I think of it, I don't think I can fit this in frame without changing up the camera. This, combined with two, this is a Reach Titan. This requires two Vilsir figures in order to make this Brontosaurus looking guy with his big claw face thing. But yeah, it works. It's bizarre, but it kind of works. And again, this is just an example. This is the fun of Glyos. It's pretty much whatever you imagine it to be can be done. This is made from a Phase Vilsir and a Revenant Vilsir, which is the same two shades of translucent green, just switched around. So that is how you create one of those. It's exceptionally cool. And yeah, it's an extremely versatile toy that I'm having a lot of fun with. So yeah, it's just like any other Glyos figure. You've got articulation that's all swivel in all of its locations, so it's very 90s action figure in what it can do. Axis joints can augment it to universal, but you do have a little bit of outward motion for once with the arms, so this guy is a fair bit more posable than your standard Glyos. Exceptionally well designed. And that wasn't even it. there's still plenty more on this release. So, you might have noticed, this guy actually has some familiar colors, especially if you looked at Faden when I started this video. That is what is called a hybrid color scheme. That's basically what you call it anytime a figure that isn't Faden is wearing Faden colors. And to date, they only did 2 of them until now. So, we have the Buildman, who has not been seen in a long time, but he is one of the classic Glyos molds, so very cool to see him back. And now, sporting the Faden blue color scheme for the first time. Absolutely awesome. So, you stand over there. And that also goes for this guy. So, this is a Glyon, your standard release. Exceptionally well done. Both of these figures, by the way, do come with extra heads, so you can make a Glyon Ninja or a Space Soldier, Space Marine out of him. And then you have a more typical robot head built in for your Buildman, should you want to rearrange them as well. So, I like that. I've always loved those Glyos toys that have like multiple components and whole kinds of things. And this drop did allow you to do a lot more with that, because this is, for the first time, Faden gets all of the extras to play with, all these extra parts to build up whatever kind of Faden you want. 10 years and Faden never got these upgrade pieces that they've been making for everybody else. It's just not fair, I tell you. So the Buildman came with the Origin head. So with one of those, you can actually make a hybrid Origin. With one of these, you can turn your Glyon into a Deep Space Glyon, which is a much cooler design for me, because it's got that old school spaceman vibe to it. You also have things like the phase arm set, so you can equip him with a very Mega Man style arm cannon, or an even beefier arm cannon that's not so Mega Man in style. The problem here is, if you've noticed any of the Fadens, which one do I have handy? Well, I have the original handy. The colors changed over the years. It matches the current ones a little bit better. All the old school Fadens are panel lined, so the colors don't quite match unless you break out a Gundam marker. But I don't know, the thought's there, and at least the parts now exist. They didn't before. Speaking of panel lining, one of the big finales here is a DX release of the Glyarmor, again in classic Faden colors. This looks exceptionally awesome. I'm very happy to see that panel lines are making a return. They are very expensive for a Glyos figure, but the look is just unmatched on some of these guys. The neat thing about the Glyarmor, of course, is how many ways you can play with it. Rearranging the armor allows you to create a Barterix build, also panel lined, and underneath all of this armor, an extremely cool looking fully painted Faden, which I think is a very appropriate thing for the 10th anniversary. So that is everything that Onell Design dropped for its 10th year of existence. I'm exceptionally happy with this. Not only do you get a wide variety of colors going on here, but you get a ton of stuff to build with in the classic, traditional, original Faden blue color scheme. Throw in some old favorites like, you know, the Buildman, Thanos / Sarvos, and yes, a brand new mold in the Vilsir. You have an exceptional range, and I'm hoping for another 10 years of toys that are this fun to play with, this cool.